Maximize your potential and focus on your performance. Look into your future and power up your purpose. Power people, let's change our mindset, people. Let's empower people to see all their potential when they power up and make your official. Maximize your performance and focus on your potential. Look into your future and power up your purpose.
Welcome back to Power Up, Maximize Your Potential, because we are here with Miss Stephanie Slocum of Engineers Rising. And Stephanie, we were talking about retention and the opportunities that you provide for women to increase their confidence level so that they can have a seat at the table, and not only have a seat at the table, but so that they can extend in their careers and in leadership roles. And so I'm going to turn it over to Eric because I know he has a couple of questions. I'm looking at him like, okay, I want to get in this. Let me talk.
Yeah, this is extremely important because not only can I relate to this, but I think all types of minorities can relate to this because what you're saying is so scalable. I think a lot of people, I think it resonates. And I didn't really think about that when you talk about, STEMs and engineering and stuff. For a while, I've always lived by the concept, people don't leave companies, they leave bad bosses. But from listening to you, it sounds like it should be people don't leave, companies, they leave toxic work environments. Because those environments that women and just, minorities that they're dealing with, it's a culture. It seems like it's a culture shift. So what kind of things do you recommend specifically to help women overcome some of these challenges in engineering?
Okay, so that is such a great question. Thank you for asking it. So first, I don't want to give the impression that all engineering environments are toxic work cultures. So I just want to say that up front. And I will also say that there's certainly, from a policy standpoint, we can start with hiring in terms of you get resumes in. It's been proven that if you take off the names and make that more of a blind process, you are more likely to end up with a diverse applicant pool because we have these unconscious biases related to, we see the name. So in engineering, you see the guy's name, you see the girl's name, and you automatically have this kind of stereotypical impression, it's called implicit bias, that the guy is more qualified than the woman, even with the exact same qualifications. And for anyone that's listening that's like, oh, you're making this up, there's been a ton of studies in all sorts of fields, not just STEM, showing that this bias plays into your decisions, whether you are aware of it or not. So that's I would say that's the low-hanging fruit on the policy side, and there's a lot of these other things going on too. But from an individual woman perspective, which is what I want to focus on, because if you're in that spot right now where you feel like I'm not getting where I want to go, I want to power up my career, but no one's listening to me and I can't get to that next level, what can you do? So the first thing is to understand that no one is going to just give you the opportunity you want, even if you think or you see that, somebody else sitting next to you seems to just magically be handed these opportunities. So being able to speak up for what you want, and I can give you a very specific example of this. So let's say, engineering is very project-based. A lot of the professionals are very project-based. When a really interesting project is coming into the office, or maybe you just submitted a proposal on an interesting project, and you're like, I really want to work with that. Going to your manager and saying, hey, if we get this project, if this comes into the office, I really want to work on this particular project. The same thing in terms of speaking up in meetings. So if you get cut off or interrupted while you're sitting in the meeting, you feel like someone's trying to take your idea or jump in. First, understand that a lot of times people don't even see that they're doing this. They're not necessarily having a conscious thought that, oh, well, I don't want to hear her talk, I'm just going to jump in. One of the best ways I found personally to combat that, and this is one of the, especially in the current virtual environment, so recognizing, when you're in person, it's a little bit different than the virtual environment, is to keep on talking. Don't let them interrupt you. I know in person, sometimes maybe the evil eye, what I'm going to call it, the glassy stare might work, but it doesn't work in the virtual environment. So, making sure that your voice is heard, which can be highly uncomfortable for a lot of us, especially if you are an introvert like I am. You may not believe that from watching this show right now, but I am a very introverted person, and this is something I had to learn. So to all the women out there who are also introverted, or who feel like, oh, my work should stand for itself. I agree with you, it should, but that's not the reality in corporate America today. Like, you can do phenomenal work, but if no one in charge knows about it because you don't speak up, you don't advocate for yourself, you haven't spent time to deliberately build the relationships so people know what you're doing, you're not going to be able to move to that next level for yourself.
It's so interesting that some people use that terminology as, I like to be behind the scenes.
Yep.
And sometimes if that's the stand that you take, then you find that you're always behind the scenes and you've gotten a little comfortable, that's your place. And so to your point, and I think this is where your program Fearless comes in. So tell us a little bit about that program, because I'm so excited about this conversation because I think it's so appropriate. We're talking in the engineering realm, but this is in general. I mean, this is so across the board as you talk to. So tell us about your Fearless program.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. So Fearless, so first of all, for me, Fearless isn't about having no fear. It's about feeling the fear, feeling that, okay, I'm stepping out of my comfort zone, comfortable rut is what I like to call it, and doing something anyways, in spite of the fear, the uncomfortableness you may be feeling. So what I found in talking to lots of women in engineering, but also outside of engineering, is that a lot of us don't know what we want. We go into our jobs and we kind of expect our boss or manager to just give us projects, and we don't think about, what kind of project would I really like to work on? Like, what are my strengths and skills that I can really, use with my employer to help them meet their business goals, but also to help me with my unique skill sets get up to the next level. So the beginning of the program is helping you figure that out. So figuring out, where you want to go, visioning per se, like if you could wave your magic wand, what's your big dream aspiration for your career? And then taking that into, okay, how do I translate into skills that my employer will find valuable and are unique to me, so that I can, basically create my own value proposition at the organization I'm at. And I do that in a little bit of a, I think, unusual way, in that recognizing that most of us aren't going to stay at the same jobs for a really long time. And sometimes, so for example, like when I got to the point I was working for someone else and I wanted to start my own company, I wasn't going to go to my employer and say, hey, I want to start my own company. Can you help me learn some skills that I will use when I get there? Right. That wasn't going to fly. And so what I did, and what I teach my students, is to look at your skills, find the one that's going to knock over the other things in your path, which for me, when I first started doing this, once again, think about engineering, the bar is pretty low for public speaking. And so, no offense to any engineers out there, but the bar is pretty low. So for me, I thought, okay, if I can advocate for myself, if I can do public speaking, that puts me in front of clients, that has a direct line to the business of the company I'm working at, the networking stuff, that's what I want to be doing. So I went and learned that skill with my employer's blessing, and acquired this kind of unique thing that I was the only one doing it. Like it made it so it was impossible to compare me to peers. So moving along with the program. So first we're figuring out what you want. Next, we're figuring out the skills you need to get there. The third one is all about leadership, because what I've learned is I would have considered myself a behind the scenes person as well. But what I found is that when you're behind the scenes, you become invisible.
Mm-hmm.
And so regardless of, if you are more comfortable behind the scenes, you need to be able to demonstrate those leadership skills, because if you don't, you're going to end up getting left behind and become one of those many statistics about women leaving engineering. So after we figure out what we want and the skills we're trying to acquire, we focus on how do you overcome gender bias, a lot of these unconscious bias situations, especially when you were the only woman in the room. And then after that, we have a whole discussion on networking, mentoring, finding mentors, because that's a huge challenge for women and minorities to find someone levels above them that looks like them. And I'm going to call it the power skill of negotiation. I hated asking for what I wanted. That was a skill I had to learn. But what I find with a lot of women, especially, is that we've been, and it more so in white women than sometimes in other groups, but a lot of us have been brought up to kind of ask permission instead of go for what we wanted. We wait for someone to give us the project. We wait for someone to tell us we're doing a good job instead of imagining our future, making a plan to do it, and then going for it. So what I say, I call it negotiation skills, because they apply to, asking for what you want with pay and benefits, but it's also the same skills are what cause you to be able to speak up at work and advocate for yourself and your teams and get those technical projects that you need.
This is amazing. I'm so excited that you're here to share this information, not only just from an engineering aspect, but because of the female, that we're always looking at females in industries and the challenges that they have when they are either limiting themselves or they're allowing others to limit their progress. And so I think the program that you have is amazing because it allows people to, I always say that, you have to acquire your voice. And, when you have that voice, now you have to use it.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, that's one of the biggest things people will say coming out of the program is that, the program is based around a lot of community. So you're in a group with other people talking about the same issues. And there is a lot of, oh, I'm not the only one experiencing this. Everybody has this problem. It's not just me. And the confidence that comes when you realize, okay, not only is it not just me, this is actually a solvable problem. I mean, not to say there aren't situations where it's not solvable. So if you have a truly toxic manager or something like that, then, you need to move on. But I think more organizations than not are more, I'm going to say, apathetic, and that they tend to be very transactional. They tend to be just, get your job done, don't rock the boat, stick with the status quo. And when you recognize that, you have to realize that you are your most powerful advocate. Like only you can know what's best for you and what you need to raise your hand for, and where you need to go next in your career. And I would say the biggest thing, like if the audience leaves today with nothing else, it's that whatever your strengths are that make you weird, those are usually the things you need to lean into at work in order to get to the next level, even if it's really, really uncomfortable. Like for me, it was writing. And for years, I had someone early in my career say, oh, well, engineers don't write. And for years, I kind of hid it. Like I would not volunteer for writing things because I was like, that's not something engineers did. But as soon as I started leaning into that, I found myself editing proposals that were going to clients and gaining a whole lot of really valuable skills that I was uniquely good at and came easily to me. And I'm sure everyone watching today has something like that they're like, I have this awesome skill and it's underutilized and I'm not meeting my potential. Lean into that skill. Find a way to tie that skill to the business of your employer, specifically like how can you use that skill to make a financial impact to your employer, and watch your career just skyrocket farther than you could have ever imagined.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That is so inspirational. I'm serious. I'm leaning into all this advice that you're sharing, and I can just imagine our viewers just really doing the same because it resonates so deeply with people. I can just imagine, what other professionals may be going through when they're trying to get to that next level, but the mindset that gets in the way, the lack of confidence, and I can see why it's called fearless, because you have to be fearless in order to do that, in order to get what you want. And I'm so glad that you were able to share that piece of advice for people. What about, I have one personal question for you. I have a daughter, she's 4 years old. I think she's creative. She's still figuring out what she wants in life. What do you recommend, you know, you know, females or just women or just children, girls who, to try to cultivate that kind of, interest in engineering? What would you do?
Yeah, so for a little context, I have three daughters. I have a sixth grader, a fourth grader, and a first grader, all girls. So, and I won't say so. I wouldn't say that we're like, and I'm married to an engineer, but I wouldn't say we're like pushing them towards engineering. One of the things, I mean, we've had Legos around from a very young age, so we're encouraging them to build things and try things out. So for example, there's a lot of STEM toys out there now, like Moldy Blocks comes to mind as one where they can build things and put things together. So starting with the toys, but I think the more important thing here, and this is related to STEM, but I think it's related to being like a successful human when you get older, is that so they've done a ton of studies that has shown, for example, like if you tell a kid they're smart, they will apply less effort. If you reward a child for effort and for trying, especially if they tried to build that thing and it fell down and didn't work, that's how you develop confidence, and that's how you develop resilience. It's pushing yourself that little bit. So like with my kids, I'm asking them every day, what did you try today that didn't work? And I'm like, if you go 2 days in a row and you can't think of anything, then I'm going to usually intervene. But usually they'll start trying, and sometimes it's, well, not right now because all of them are virtual for school right now. But at school, sometimes it's, well, I saw someone being mean to someone else in class and I spoke up. And they didn't listen, but I did it, and like I spoke up. And sometimes it's, well, we had this project and I was trying to use this, I couldn't figure out how to get my PowerPoint slides to work, but I tried to figure it out. So focusing on how, rewarding the effort and, making sure that they can see that, yes, I can do it too. I mean, I think seeing mentors and role models in STEM, like having people come into schools that, a woman, minority, all those sorts of people, seeing that as a role model is also really important when they get a little bit older. But I feel like allowing them to tinker, and encouraging them to tinker and try things that don't work, yeah, they'll be phenomenally good in STEM when they get there. But regardless of what their career choice is, that particular skill, that building resilience, that building confidence, will serve them well no matter where they go, whatever field they get into.
Wow.
I think that is so important. Stephanie, we are so excited that you're actually here today because I think this is a great topic for Power Up. I mean, if you're talking about powering up, I mean, walking through your confidence and literally speaking up for yourself. And I always used to tell people, even if it's not something you're sure you want to have, but you want to just throw your name in the hat, just put your name in the hat and then let the universe decide for you. And then when you're called on, then you're like, oh my gosh, now I have to perform, right? You just kind of put yourself out there. Sometimes that's what it takes. It's just putting yourself out there. So Thank you so much for being here today and sharing with this. And I am sure, like Eric said, our viewers are going to get so much out of this, because I think this is something that is so prevalent for so many women in industry. I do appreciate that. And you know what? Because Eric and I are still coming up with antics for our show, this is our second episode. And so we've come up with a little antic, and you're going to be the first person. So, you are going to be the first. So
awesome. I love being the guinea pig. Let's go.
So we have our power up cards here. And these are conversational cards that we're going to allow you to select from. I'm going to see if I can do this right. And you're going to pick a card.
Pick one.
That's the
That's the one you pick. It's that one right there. Yep.
That's right there. And I'm going to see if Eric can read that.
I'm sorry, I can't read that. What does success look like to you?
There you go.
What does success look like to me? Oh, that's such a good question. And it's so important to define that for yourself, as opposed to looking out at everybody else and playing the comparison game, which you're going to completely lose. So for me, success to me looks like having a life and career together where I get to have impact and influence on the world, which is why I said at the beginning, I have the best job in the world. But I want to have financial and schedule freedom, which is one of the reasons I started my own business. And so for me, it's all about getting to do work I love, while also being able to spend time with my family and time in my community. As you mentioned at the beginning, like, I'm hugely volunteered. I probably say yes more than I should, but that's really important to me. And being able to focus on those priorities that are important to me. So at the end of the day, I'm like, yes, I had a life well lived today. That's what success looks like to me.
I love it. I love it.
Me too.
And before you get out of here, before we release you, Eric, do you have another question? Because Stephanie has a gift for our viewers.
Oh my God.
Actually, I'm interested in what this gift is all about. but where can viewers where can viewers get a hold of you and interact with you online?
Yeah. So my website is engineersrising.com. All one word, sounds spelled exactly like it sounds. And if you find me there, you can also connect to me on social media. I'm on all the social media platforms. I have a weekly newsletter that shares tips and tricks, a lot of it related to this sort of mindset stuff we've been talking about today. And can I share my free gift now?
Absolutely.
I'm excited to share that too. Okay. So we've been talking about a lot of these kind of like non-technical issues as we're going along. And as you shared at the beginning, I am an author of a book called She Engineers. So I would like to give everybody that's watching today a free digital copy of the entire book, not just a chapter, not just two, the whole thing. And so you can find that if you go to sheengineersbook.com/power-up, because that's what the book is about, is powering up your career.
I love it. Thank you.
That's amazing. Yes, that is amazing.
And we're going to put all of that information into our promotions and our comment section so people can get that. And we're going to repeatedly allow people to click on that link, because I think this is amazing. And we thank you so very, very much for providing that for our viewers.
Happy to do it.
All right. Well, with that, thank you so very, very much. We are so excited to be able to have you here today, Ms. Stephanie Slocum.
Thanks so much.
Engineers Rising on Power Up, Maximize Your Performance. We want to thank you. And listen, you come back anytime.
Please.
I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me. This has been so fun.
You're on EM-Spire Magazine, DreamSpire TV, and have an amazing day.